Welcome to podcast Sarah and Michael.
Welcome to the deep dive. So imagine a country offering to, single-handedly drop the price of gas worldwide and just end a regional war today.
Yeah, like they have the power to just flip a switch and stabilize the entire global economy.
Right. But the catch is, to get that relief, you have to let them keep building a nuclear weapon.
Which is just, it's a mind-bending geopolitical trap.
It really is. That is the exact situation the United States is staring down right now, and it's wild.
It completely scrambles your normal sense of how negotiations work, Usually there's a give and take, like a slow buildup of trust.
Right, a process.
Exactly. But what we are looking at today is just an all-or-nothing ultimatum. And the fallout from this decision is already hitting every single person listening to this right now.
Seriously. And to help you navigate the reality of what is actually happening behind closed doors, we're pulling from a really fascinating stack of recent on-the-ground reports.
Yeah.
Specifically from Reuters and the Thai Post.
Yeah, some really eye-opening stuff in there.
Definitely. So our mission for you today is to summarize this highly anticipated 14-point peace proposal that Iran just dropped on the table.
Delivered via Pakistan as a mediator, which is an interesting detail.
Very. We're going to decode the actual mechanics behind those 14 points, and then we're going to analyze exactly why former U.S. President Donald Trump is flat out refusing to accept it.
And, keep the sheer scale of this in your mind as we go through the details. We're talking about the fate of roughly 20% of the world's oil and gas exports.
20%. That's a massive chunk of the global energy supply.
It's huge. That volume of energy is currently trapped by this escalating standoff, and it's all happening with the U.S. midterm elections looming in November.
Yeah, the pressure on the political system is just immense right now.
Absolutely.
So let's look at exactly what Iran put on the table to try and break this 4-week pause in airstrikes between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. I'll just run through the core demands of this 14-point plan so you can understand the sheer scale of what they're asking for here.
Go for it. The list is pretty staggering.
It really is. Okay, first, they're demanding a total U.S. troop withdrawal from the area surrounding Iran. Second, the immediate lifting of the U.S. naval blockade. Third, the unfreezing of all Iranian financial assets globally, plus the payment of compensation for damages.
Which honestly is already a massive ask, but they just keep going.
Yeah, they do. Fourth is the complete lifting of all international sanctions. Fifth, an end to the war on all fronts.
Yes.
And they specifically note Lebanon in the text, which we'll get into later.
Yeah, that part's crucial.
And finally, establishing a brand new control mechanism for the Strait of Hormuz.
What's fascinating here is the sequencing. On the surface, Iran is offering something the global economy desperately needs right now.
A lifeline, basically.
Exactly. They are offering to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which is the main artery for Middle Eastern oil, and they're offering a guarantee against any further attacks.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Right. But they want to push the most complex foundational issue, which is restricting their nuclear program to the very final stage of negotiations.
So they want everything now, and they'll handle the hard stuff later.
Exactly. They're demanding immediate, sweeping economic relief in Phase 1, while promising to maybe deal with the nuclear issue in, Phase 14.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the structure of this deal is just wildly lopsided. Imagine you're trying to buy a house.
Okay, I'm with you.
But this house has a massively compromised sinking foundation.
Yeah.
And that foundation is the nuclear issue.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. So the seller, Iran, is demanding you hand over all the cash, give them the neighborhood security codes, and pay them for the landscaping up front.
Wow.
And in exchange, they promise to let you move in today, and they swear they'll get around to fixing that sinking foundation later.
Right, trust us, we'll fix the massive structural hazard eventually.
Exactly. They want the ultimate reward right now, and they want to push the ultimate concession to the very end of the line.
It's a bold strategy.
It is. But I have to admit, if I'm looking at the global energy market in absolute chaos right now, I might take that deal.
Really?
Isn't getting the oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz immediately worth the cost of delaying the nuclear talks? If the entire economy is suffocating, maybe we worry about the foundation of the house tomorrow.
Well, if you're an average consumer just looking at gas prices, your logic makes perfect sense. People need relief.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
But you have to look at the mechanics of why the U.S. initiated this conflict in the first place. For Donald Trump and the current U.S. leadership, that sinking foundation isn't just a side issue.
It's the main event.
It's the entire reason they are at the negotiating table. The stated goal for the U.S. initiating strikes back in February was to permanently halt Iran's nuclear program.
Ah, okay. So to them, signing a deal that delays the nuclear question just entirely defeats the purpose of the last few months of conflict.
Precisely. According to the reports, Trump has been briefed on the overarching concepts of this deal. He claims he's waiting for, quote, concrete wording.
Right. Playing for time a bit.
Yeah. But he took to his Truth Social platform to state that the 14-point plan is fundamentally unacceptable. His stated reasoning is that Iran hasn't, quote, paid enough for what they've done over the past 47 years.
47 years. That time frame is a really crucial detail. He's taking it all the way back to the 1979 revolution.
Exactly. He is viewing this not just as a localized dispute over shipping lanes, but as a half-century ideological and geopolitical battle.
So giving them all their frozen assets and lifting sanctions before securing the nuclear deal, I mean, that would essentially give Iran a massive cash injection to fund their military, right?
Yep, with absolutely no guarantee they won't just turn around and build the bomb anyway.
And Trump is trying to manage this very strange rhetorical duality right now. Like, he insists he doesn't want to use the military for humanitarian reasons.
Right, he even told congressional leaders he doesn't need authorization to expand the war because hostilities have technically paused.
Yeah, but in the exact same breath, he bluntly warned reporters that the U.S. will resume attacks if Iran, quote, misbehaves.
It's a very precarious tightrope he's walking.
It is.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean? Well, it brings us to a really stunning quote from Trump at a recent rally in Florida. It completely shatters the illusion of this being a quiet, diplomatic pause.
Oh, I know the quote you're talking about.
Yeah, while discussing the ongoing U.S. blockade of Iranian ports, Trump was remarkably candid about the physical reality on the water. He admitted that the U.S. Navy is actively boarding vessels, seizing ships, seizing cargo, and taking oil.
Which is intense.
He literally told the crowd, quote, "We're like pirates, but we're not playing a game."
Wow. That quote is incredibly revealing about how a modern naval blockade actually functions, you know?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people picture an 18th century blockade, like a wall of wooden ships just sitting off the coast.
Exactly, just dropping anchor and waiting. But modern blockades are active and highly physical. The U.S. Navy uses satellite tracking and automatic identification systems to hunt down these tankers carrying Iranian oil.
They're actively hunting them.
Oh, yeah. They deploy fast boats and helicopters to put armed boarding teams onto the decks of these massive moving vessels. They literally take over the helm, physically redirect the ship to a friendly port, and sell the oil.
That's wild. It's a maximum pressure campaign enforced at the barrel of a gun.
It really is.
But Iran isn't just a passive victim in this dynamic either. They are applying their own counter-pressure, and they have geography heavily on their side.
Yes, they do.
Let's talk about the Strait of Hormuz, because this is where the global economy is taking a direct hit right now.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the geography of the Strait of Hormuz is the single most important factor in this entire standoff.
How so?
Well, it's a narrow waterway sitting right between Oman and Iran. At its narrowest point, it's only 21 miles wide, but the actual deep water shipping lanes, those are only 2 miles wide in either direction.
2 miles wide. For all that oil traffic, that is a massive traffic choke point.
It's a needle, just a tiny needle. And for over 2 months now, Iran has essentially blocked almost all foreign shipping in the Persian Gulf.
Wait, how do they do that without physically boarding every single ship themselves?
That's the brilliant part, strategically speaking. They don't even need to physically board them. The mechanism is much simpler. It's all about maritime insurance.
Insurance?
Yep. If Iran simply threatens to fire on foreign tankers or just harasses a few of them, insurance companies in London and New York immediately panic. They either revoke coverage or skyrocket the premiums for any vessel entering the Gulf.
Oh, wow. So the market does the work for them.
Exactly. If a tanker cannot get insured, the shipping company will not let it sail. So by merely projecting a credible threat, Iran has effectively trapped 20% of the world's oil and gas exports.
And the immediate result of shutting down that much supply is just sparking massive fears of a broad global economic recession.
It's terrifying markets everywhere.
Yeah, and it's causing gasoline prices here in the United States to soar, which creates a massive political vulnerability for the U.S. administration.
Right, because midterms are coming up in November, and voters are highly sensitive to inflation. The Republican Party faces a severe backlash if energy prices stay sky high.
Nobody likes paying double at the pump.
Exactly. Trump claims he isn't in a rush to make a deal, but his domestic political calendar says otherwise.
Yeah, the clock is ticking loudly. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If you're listening to this thinking, well, the U.S. is a superpower, surely they can just outlast Iran.
It's a common assumption.
Right. But you have to look at how the rest of the world is reacting. It is not just a two-player standoff. Take China, for example. China is a massive consumer of Iranian oil, and they just fundamentally undermined the U.S. blockade.
It was a huge move.
Yeah. The U.S. Treasury put sanctions on 5 Chinese companies that were buying Iranian oil. And the Chinese Commerce Ministry responded by completely rejecting those sanctions.
Just ignored them.
Basically, they called them inappropriate and stated publicly that they'll continue normal business operations with Iran. So I have to ask, is the U.S. losing its leverage if major players like China just decide to ignore the sanctions?
Honestly, yes. If the second largest economy on Earth decides your sanctions are invalid, your maximum pressure campaign springs a massive leak.
It's like trying to drain a pool while someone else has a hose running into it.
Exactly. And the way China bypasses these sanctions is this intricate, deliberate system. They use what's known as the dark fleet.
Ah, I was hoping we would get to the dark fleet. Please explain how this actually works out on the open ocean.
It sounds like something out of a movie. The dark fleet is a decentralized network of older oil tankers that fly flags of convenience.
Meaning they're registered in countries with really lax maritime laws.
Right. And to avoid the U.S. Navy, these ships just turn off their AIS transponders. They basically go completely dark on international tracking systems.
So they just vanish off the map.
Yep. Then they meet up with Iranian ships in the middle of the ocean, often at night, and conduct these massive ship-to-ship transfers of oil.
Wow. So the oil essentially gets laundered at sea.
Exactly. It's totally untraceable by the time it reaches port. And on the financial side, China pays for this oil using the Chinese yuan. They completely bypass the U.S. dollar and the Western SWIFT banking system.
Oh, that's clever. Because the U.S. Treasury can't freeze funds that never touch a Western bank.
Precisely. This provides Iran with a vital, continuous stream of revenue, which of course emboldens them to hold out longer and make aggressive demands, like the ones we see in the 14-point plan.
Which brings me back to one of the most intriguing and honestly confusing points in that 14-point proposal.
You mean point number 5?
Yeah, point number 5 demanded an end to the war on, quote, all fronts, and they specifically highlighted Lebanon. If you are Iran and your domestic economy is being absolutely squeezed by a blockade, why are you spending your precious negotiating capital to protect a totally separate sovereign nation over 1,000 miles away?
Well, this raises an important question about how Iran views its own defense. To understand that, you have to understand that Iran's borders are only the starting point of their military strategy.
Okay.
Iran relies on a really sophisticated proxy network across the Middle East to provide strategic depth. They don't want to fight a war on their own soil.
Nobody does, really.
Right. So they fund, train, and equip allied groups, most notably Hezbollah in Lebanon, to act as their forward defense against Israel and the U.S.
So Hezbollah is basically Iran's insurance policy on Israel's northern border.
Precisely. And that insurance policy is currently taking massive damage, even though there has officially been a ceasefire in place between Israel and Hezbollah since April 17th.
Right, I remember that being announced.
Well, the reality on the ground is active warfare. According to recent reports, Israel has continued heavy bombardment in southern Lebanon.
It hasn't stopped at all.
Not even a little. The Israeli military just reported destroying 70 military structures and 50 Hezbollah infrastructures. The human toll is also severe, with strikes in the Tyre district leaving 3 people dead.
And from what I read, the strikes aren't just hitting military compounds. They're hitting civilian and religious infrastructure, too, which is drawing intense international condemnation.
Yeah, there was a very striking report from a French Catholic charity called Louvre d'Orient. They strongly condemned what they described as the deliberate destruction of places of worship.
What exactly did they hit?
They specifically pointed to Israeli forces operating in a village who destroyed a monastery belonging to the Salvatorian Sisters, which is a Greek Catholic religious order.
Wow.
Yeah, the crossfire in Lebanon is destructive, it's indiscriminate, and it's highly visible on the world stage right now.
So when Iran demands an end to the war on all fronts, they're essentially trying to throw a protective blanket over their entire proxy network.
Exactly. They cannot sign a deal that secures their own domestic peace, but leaves Hezbollah exposed to ongoing bombardment.
because it would signal to every other proxy group in the region that Iran will just abandon them to save itself.
Right. It would completely shatter their credibility as a regional power.
Yeah.
It's a package deal. Iran is telling the U.S., if you want the Strait of Hormuz open to save your midterm elections, you have to stop bombing our allies in Lebanon.
Man, the interconnectedness of this is just staggering.
It really is.
But it's not just the Middle East that's feeling the tremors of this standoff. The global military map is fundamentally realigning because the U.S. is stretching its resources so thin.
Oh, yeah. Look at what is happening in Europe right now.
Exactly. While all this tension is focused on the Persian Gulf, the U.S. is making massive unexpected moves in Germany. Trump just announced the U.S. is pulling over 5,000 troops out of the country.
Pulling 5,000 troops out of Germany is a tectonic shift in military posture. I mean, Germany has been the historic anchor of U.S. power in Europe since the end of World War II.
Right.
Moving that many troops isn't a minor logistical adjustment. It caught NATO completely off guard. They actually had to formally request more information from Washington just to understand the scope of the withdrawal.
But why pull them out now? Is it to send them to the Middle East to support this blockade?
It's a combination of consolidating resources and applying leverage. Maintaining the massive naval presence required to enforce a blockade in the Middle East while also trying to counter China in the Indo-Pacific, it stretches the U.S. military thin.
Yeah, they can't be everywhere at once.
Exactly. So by pulling troops out of Europe, the U.S. is sending a very blunt message to its allies. The Cold War era of the U.S. providing a free security umbrella is over.
And Europe seems to be getting the message loud and clear. The reaction from the German defense minister was incredibly telling.
What'd he say?
He stated bluntly that this withdrawal was anticipated and that Europe must now take more responsibility for its own security.
Wow.
Yeah, it forces Europe to ramp up their own defense spending while the U.S. focuses its attention elsewhere.
It's a world map fundamentally realigning around a single, massive pressure point.
It really is. So to synthesize all of these moving parts for you listening right now, let's look at the grand picture.
Let's do it.
You now understand the strategic architecture of Iran's 14-point plan. They're dangling the ultimate prize, immediate economic salvation for a world starving for oil, but demanding the U.S. ignore the sinking nuclear foundation until later.
Right. And meanwhile, the U.S. is executing this highly physical, pirate-style blockade, refusing to budge on the nuclear guarantees.
And the leverage is constantly shifting. The U.S. has military superiority, but that superiority is actively being undermined by China's dark fleets and alternative banking.
And most importantly, Donald Trump is fighting a two-front war. One against Iran in the Persian Gulf, and one against the calendar back home.
The November midterms are approaching fast, and high gas prices are historically lethal to incumbent political parties.
Which leaves us with a truly fascinating and, frankly, slightly terrifying reality. The grand, decades-long strategies of world leaders are about to crash headfirst into the daily financial realities of the average voter.
That is so true.
It raises a final, lingering question that we all really need to consider as this standoff evolves over the next few months.
What's that?
If this blockade continues to restrict 20% of the world's energy, driving up inflation and potentially triggering a global recession, what happens when everyday voters step into the ballot box in November?
Yeah.
Will they care more about the immediate, painful price of a gallon of gas in their local town? Or will they care more about securing a complex, long-term nuclear guarantee in a country thousands of miles away?
Wow.
When the geopolitical strategy collides with an empty wallet, which one actually dictates the future of global security?
That is a phenomenal question to leave on. It is the ultimate collision of international strategy and local reality.
It really is.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the forces shaping our world right now. We will keep tracking these sources and unpacking the mechanics behind the headlines. Catch you next time.